Summer will start any day now, I promise. Really. I'm Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, the U.S. soccer team ties Portugal, loses to Germany, and moves on to the next round. Yeah, nobody understands the rules. The big gig kicks off, but fireworks are canceled twice because of the fog. New numbers showed the U.S. economy shrank by 2.9% in the first quarter. The U.S. Supreme Court rules the police need a warrant to search your cell phone, and the court hands President Obama a defeat, ruling that some of his recess appointments were unconstitutional. Imagine that. But we start with the week's biggest political story. Now, you remember all the screaming headlines, right? John Doe prosecutors allege Scott Walker at center of criminal scheme. That was the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Or this, John Doe prosecutors accuse Scott Walker of running criminal scheme during recalls. That was the Wisconsin State Journal from Madison. Well, never mind. On Thursday, the special prosecutor, Francis Schmitz, issued a statement through his lawyer saying that no, Scott Walker was not a target of the investigation. The statement from the prosecutor's lawyer said, at the time the investigation was halted, Governor Walker was not a target of the investigation. At no time has he been served with a subpoena. While these documents outlined the prosecutor's legal theory, they did not establish the existence of a crime. Rather, they were arguments in support of further investigation to determine if criminal charges against any person or entity are warranted. It is wrong for any person to point to this sentence in a legal argument as a finding by the special prosecutor that Governor Walker has engaged in a criminal scheme. It is not such a finding. Now, Governor Walker's campaign was quick to respond, putting out a statement saying, after the media's slanderous reporting last week, today's statement by the prosecutors should serve as an opportunity for the media to correct the record and report the real facts of the story. Two judges have ruled there is no case. Now prosecutors have stated clearly that not only was Governor Walker not a target of the investigation, but, the prosecutor's statement came the same day that Democrat Mary Burke launched a television ad that used the allegations against Walker.
It started like this.
Prosecutors in Wisconsin are alleging that Governor Scott Walker
participated in a criminal scheme.
Prosecutors claim the governor led a criminal scheme that broke election law.
Now, Walker called on Burke to pull that ad. Burke so far has refused. Now, joining me on the panel this morning, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Mikel Holt, former state representative Michelle Litjens, political strategist Lynne DeBruin, and media trackers Brian Sikma. Brian, let's start with you. What do you make of this? Never mind, the prosecutor waits a full week to put out this statement.
It's unbelievable, Charlie. I mean, the absolute bias we saw from the mainstream media over the past week has been astonishing. I mean, you read some of these headlines. Look at these other headlines. Prosecutors, Governor Walker part of criminal scheme. You have Wisconsin's Walker implicated in criminal scheme, MSNBC said. These headlines, headline after headline, story after story by journalists at the state level and the national level completely distorted the facts. Governor Walker's campaign team was right. Two judges, a federal judge and a state judge, have both said this John Doe is not going anywhere. It's not a real investigation. They don't accept the evidence prosecutors have submitted so far, and yet the media decided to ignore those facts, and in a display of bias against the GOP governor, they decided to write their own narrative.
Why did the special prosecutor issue this statement? I mean, you could always ask the question, why did he wait a week to issue it? But why did he issue it at all? What is that about?
I really have no idea what it's about. And you look at it, it wasn't Francis Schmitz issuing that statement. It was an attorney for him who's defending him in this case at the federal level. That's who issued the statement. I think the prosecutors maybe realized they stepped in it, or that they had to do something to correct the media narrative.
Okay, Lynne DeBruin.
Oh, I think, first of all, this type of a statement from a special prosecutor is extremely rare, unheard of, unprecedented. And frankly, I think it's for the reasons you actually mentioned. All of the media coverage that was pouncing on the release of the emails and drawing the conclusion that Walker was basically going to be charged with a criminal conspiracy. And what this special prosecutor was saying, whoa, I need to put the brakes on that because I haven't decided yet. It's not completely put to bed, but it is not what the headlines were doing. And I think that's what he was responding to.
Okay.
The investigation is over. The only reason he issued this statement was to CYA, because he is being challenged right now and taken to court. He has to prove that he was not investigating Scott Walker for political purposes, and so he had to stand up and say, wait a minute
Well,
here.
you know, Lynn is absolutely right how incredibly unusual this statement was, but it's even more unusual than that because it wasn't actually a statement from the special prosecutor.
Right.
It was from his attorney who's defending him in this federal civil rights action. So there was some damage control, but you wonder what the damage he was afraid of. Is he afraid of being called into contempt? Is he afraid of the way that the discovery is going to play out in all of this?
Right, I think because it's going to back up his original statement in his brief, which said that the governor was the center of this criminal scheme.
Okay, Michael Holt, we talked about the media and how when you read the original Journal-Sentinel story, you thought that the governor was going to be indicted. Now you have the special prosecutor saying, yeah, by the way, the justification that you used for those screaming World War III headlines that the governor was the target is not true.
And you're not going to see 72-point headlines saying that. You know, you posed the question, will Mary Burke pull those eggs? No. And anyone in her camp would say, no, absolutely, because the damage has been done. It's perpetuating this. You know, to be quiet, it put Scott Walker on the defensive.
Yes.
I'm still receiving the same emails for solicitation of funds that I was receiving 2 weeks ago saying Scott Walker is a crook. Has he stopped doing it? I'm getting those emails every day, and that's what's going to be fed throughout.
Okay, so then the question is, how does this play out? Has Walker been permanently damaged? Does this turn the dynamic of the story around, Brian?
Well, I don't know if this turns the dynamic of the story around. The statement should. Every media outlet that ran a false statement needs to run a new story, updating their story with the prosecutor's statement. I do think the way the governor handled this does mitigate the damage to him, and I think long-term people are going to look back at this and say this is an example of a media hit job, taking a piece of information, distorting it, taking it out of context. I don't think there's long-term damage here. I do think candidates that perpetuate the myth do raise serious questions about their credibility.
I do think there's long-term damage. I think there's long-term damage to the media credibility. I think there's long-term damage to the level of political discourse in this state, because I actually think that Michael Holt is right. I think Mary Burke's going to continue to run this. They're going to continue to have the Scott Walker is a crook, regardless of what is, the actual facts of the situation. So
she'll just repeat the headlines.
Right. So instead of having a debate about the substance of the issues, we're going to have this stuff.
I was going to say, the next time the national media receives something from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, they are not going to run it without thinking twice and doing some more research.
I think you're absolutely right about that, by the way. What has your glass half full? What has your glass half empty this week? Let's go around the table. Michael Holt, you're first.
Well, my glass is half empty because of the growing number of children who have been caught in the crossfire of gun violence, including Sierra Guyton, who continues to fight for her life in a local hospital. Well, my glass is half full because Evergreen Baptist Church and a youth group, Girls in Action, are soliciting donations to help Sierra's medical expenses. Pick up this Wednesday's Community Journal or visit our website to learn how you can contribute.
Michelle Litjens.
My glass is half full because the Supreme Court ruled in favor of personal privacy this week, but it's half empty because that ruling will make it more difficult for law enforcement, which is the tightrope we walk in a free society.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, my glass is half full because New York City has passed a law aimed at achieving gender equality. But my glass is half empty because the law allows women to walk around topless, naked from the waist up, just like the men do. I would have started with actually receiving equal pay for equal work.
This is New York.
New York City.
Brian Sikma.
My glass is half full because summer is finally here. That means road trips, great events, and all that Wisconsin has to offer. But my glass is half empty because outgoing Republican Congressman Tom Petri has actually introduced a federal bill from the Obama administration that would raise Wisconsin's gas tax.
Well, my glass is half full because the smear that Scott Walker was the target of the John Doe was debunked. It's half empty because the local newspaper seems to be digging in with their bogus narrative, and Mary Burke is still running her deceptive ads. Now, next on Sunday Insight, another strange murder case puts our area back in the national news. Another bizarre murder case puts Wisconsin back in the national and international headlines. A former West Dallas cop is charged with the grisly murders of two women whose bodies were left in suitcases on the side of the road. But this story actually gets even weirder. Last week, his ex-girlfriend spoke to today's TMJ4 and had this to say.
He did tell me before that he had a girl that he was with for 7 years, and he used to keep her caged 90% of the time. And I thought that was really odd. That's creepy, but nothing was ever like that between me and him.
The two met on a website called bondage.com, but she says she was surprised to find out that he had a dark side.
He was always very kind to me and did random little things for me. For him to be capable of doing something like that. And my kids, I had my kids around him. Please. Sorry.
No, I totally understand. I get it.
I totally don't understand, and I don't get it. I need you to explain this to me. Guy says, yes, I used to have a girlfriend I locked up in my cage, and she goes, what, that's odd, but it's not a deal breaker? Lynne DeBruin.
As if I can explain this to you. This is denial to such an extreme. It's just amazing. This is worse than women who let themselves get beat and beat and beat multiple times and make excuses for this guy. This is horrific. And I think it's the type of fodder. This is worse than the, crime shows and crime movies can't make this stuff up. They get it from these type of bizarre crimes.
Okay, Michelle Litjens, I mean, I'm genuinely puzzled here. I mean, here's a woman. She meets a guy on bondage.com. He tells her he locks women in cages, and she hooks up with him at a hotel for the week, and then she moves in and she brings her children. Right. And she is acting like I'm just amazed. It just happened. She chose to bring her children into this relationship with this guy who she met in this particular way. What?
There's no way to make any sense of this at all. All I can really say is I think we need to start talking more about the issue of the internet and how you can, years ago, if you kind of had a crazy fetish, you had to have secret clubs and meet in dark rooms and stuff, and it was kind of hard to find people who agreed with you on issues, and society kept you in line. But today with the internet, we have that opportunity to individually seek people out. There might only be a couple people in the state, but you can exacerbate these crazy ideas, and I think they can get out of control.
And this is the second story like this. I mean, we had the Waukesha girls, the 12-year-old girls who got into this fantasy about Slender Man to the point where they felt that they had to stab somebody. I mean, that is bizarre. Is there some reason why this is happening in Wisconsin, by the way, Brian?
I don't think there's a reason for why it's happening. Unfortunately,
is it just like the odds would be...
Is it in the water, the air, the cold winters?
There are 50 states. Could we even this out a little bit?
Yeah, no, I agree, Charlie. This is what this guy was completely deranged. I have no idea why any individual, sane individual, would want to put their children around them, would want to move in with him. There is no excuse for what he did. People need to exercise common sense. We said this in the Waukesha case where those girls were fantasizing about Slender Man, and the parents were okay with it. Parents need to be involved. Adults need to grow up and act like adults.
How did he pass? How did he pass the exam for the West House Police Department?
He's been going for a while. Maybe he got into this later.
I don't know. Some of this sounds basic chemistry.
Okay, so here's the other thing. Okay, you're a former you're a girlfriend of this guy. You met him on bondage.com. He told you that you put your children in harm's way. But then you go on television to talk about it and pretend like you're a victim. I mean, wasn't there once a time where if you did something really, really stupid, that you would go out of your way not to talk about it?
Not to get any publicity. I mean, but it speaks volumes. Where did you meet this guy? So what did you expect? Because like the guy who took the snake across the river and the snake bit him and said, did you know I was a snake? I mean, so why anybody? I'm also curious, though, with the police department, didn't they do ongoing type of psychological tests? And it never showed up. And I guess what she is saying is like, Dahmer was a nice guy too. His neighbor said he was a real good neighbor. But I mean, you have to take some personal responsibility, and don't be surprised later on when all of this comes out.
CPS should be looking into her because her level of denial is so extreme.
The situation she put her kids into knowingly.
Potential neglect, potential abuse, or whatever. I really think that they need to get into this situation.
Well, you may not want to hear it, but we're going to tell you anyway. Let's hand out some unsolicited advice. Michael Holt, you're first.
Well, mine is to Mississippi Senator Thad Cochran, who beat a right-wing Tea Party challenger only because he was able to get black Democrats to vote for him last Tuesday. To the senator, don't forget that those folks who cross over to vote for you are expecting something in return other than that pull yourself up by your bootstraps garbage.
Michelle Litjens.
To Speaker Boehner, the courts don't enforce the laws. They require the government to do that. So taking President Obama to court for not obeying the law will change nothing. You need to be more creative to fix the problem, and I know you can do it.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, my advice is for the developer who built a $2 million dream home overlooking the water in Point Judith, Rhode Island, but now has to move it or lose it because he built the home on privately owned land designated for park use. Oops. Next time, hire a competent survey team before you build.
Brian Sikma.
Well, my unsolicited advice is for Marty Kaiser and George Stanley, editors at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Before you publish sensational headlines, maybe check the facts. This week you were schooled big time by the facts.
Well, my unsolicited advice is relationship advice. If your boyfriend tells you he used to keep his former girlfriend in a cage, that is a bad sign. Run. Next on Sunday Insight, need a ride? There's an app for that. Is Uber coming to Milwaukee? Well, actually, it's already here. But last week, Milwaukee aldermen put off changing the ordinance to make it legal. Milwaukee Common Council delayed action on a proposal that would have streamlined the city's antiquated taxi cab rules and made way for the introduction of the popular app-based service. So, what do you make of this? I mean, is Uber going to come to Milwaukee, or is City Hall going to screw this up?
Well, Uber is already here.
You're right.
And Uber is a service that is used often by people who travel on a regular basis. It's extremely convenient. You use an app, you have your credit card in your phone, you call for your car, it's all paid for, there isn't any uncomfortable circumstances or situations in the car. People love the service, and I think Milwaukee would be doing itself a disservice if they were to try to regulate Uber and the like out of the city of Milwaukee. And also, if they do decide to do that, I really think the state needs to step in, because this is a consumer-driven service that I think people are going to ask for all over the state.
Well, one alderman suggested that under the law right now, what they're doing is not authorized. So he suggested, Alderman Jim Bowles suggested that Milwaukee police begin ticketing the Uber drivers.
That's utterly ridiculous. And they really need to look at updating their laws then, if that's the circumstance.
Okay, Mikel Holt.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. What they want to do is they want to make sure these vehicles are safe. And I think to Uber's...
no, they're not.
Well, and this is what they say. Uber
They want to protect the taxi cartel from the competition.
Yeah.
Come on.
But they're saying, Uber's saying that they're not a taxi service. They're a technology service. I mean, that's really a stretch by itself. I don't think they should over-regulate this.
Lynne DeBruin.
I think there's got to be a happy medium here, and I think the Common Council is going to get their act together with the mayor and deal with this so that Uber stays. Well, the bottom line is that in other cities and other states, there have been some regulations. You can work those out, but this monopoly on the taxi cab business has got to be
well, Congresswoman Gwen Moore loves Uber. Media Trackers looked at her financial disclosure report. She uses Uber in D.C., so I think that for the sake of Congresswoman Gwen Moore, Tom Barrett and the Common Council should let her keep it.
Well, here's my memo to City Hall. You want something cool? Forget about the $100 million trolley. Uber is much cooler. So what is it you don't get? Let's go around the table this week. Mikel Holt, you're first.
What I don't get is why several civil rights organizations are asking President Obama to use his executive power to close loopholes in federal racial profiling safeguards. Does our black president have to be prodded into doing what's right and just for black folks? I hope not.
Michelle Litjens.
Charlie, what I don't get is how anyone can think PolitiFact is fact-based at all anymore, especially when they said Jim Doyle didn't raise billions of dollars in taxes, because he did.
Lynne DeBruin.
So far, the FDA has approved 25 drugs for male sexual dysfunction, but no drugs, none at all, for female sexual dysfunction, calling the drug companies to call the FDA sexist. I'm no expert, but I don't get why the FDA chose this area to be sexist about. Haven't they figured out that helping women be more interested has some benefits for men?
Ryan Sikma.
Well, what I don't get is how a Mexican military helicopter can cross into U.S. airspace, fire on U.S. Border Patrol agents, and the president still doesn't get that it's time to put an end to all the lawlessness on the southern border.
Well, a new poll says that 76% of Americans don't believe the IRS's story that Lois Lerner's emails were accidentally lost. Now, what I don't get is, who are the other 26%? Do they think that space aliens came down and stole them? Next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Mikel Holt, you're first.
Questions are being raised about the response time of police to the murder of a 62-year-old black woman Wednesday. Chief Flynn said he's investigating. I'm not pointing fingers, but I will say, given the epidemic of violence, now is not the time for a disruption of community-police relations. My winners, Alderman Russell Stemper, for creating a crisis response team to help residents fight crime and to force better police response time for Central City crimes.
Michelle Litjens.
This week, soccer is a winner in the United States. If you don't have children under 25, you might not completely understand how this next generation loves soccer, but they do, which means it will only continue to thrive in the U.S. The loser is Mary Burke for not retracting her TV ad, which alleges that Scott Walker is the target of the John Doe. She knows that's a lie, and in fact, she did not pull, and the fact that she didn't pull the ad immediately said she is willing to win at any cost, which makes her a loser.
Lynne DeBruin.
Well, my winner is also Team USA for advancing in the World Cup and for drawing the largest American television audience in soccer history during last weekend's game. My loser is John Boehner. President Obama has issued fewer executive orders than any president since Grover Cleveland, but Boehner still wants to sue Obama to limit his executive authority. Be careful what what you asked for, one day there might be a Republican in the White House who might not appreciate this Republican's attempt to limit presidential authority.
Brian Sikma.
Well, my winner this week is Lois Lerner, the former IRS official under investigation by Congress whose emails have been destroyed. So far, Lerner has escaped any serious consequences for the missing evidence. If only the IRS was as charitable with the rest of us. Well, my losers are the people of Milwaukee. A report by Media Trackers found that last summer, numerous homicide criminals got off with easy sentences despite taking the lives of fellow human beings. The criminal justice system in Milwaukee is a failure right now.
Okay, the fog has been brutal, but the big gig is still the winner. It is one of the world's biggest music festivals, and it's right here. Don't take it for granted. Loser, the media. You ever wonder why the public is so skeptical? Just go back and read the way the local press handled the stories about Scott Walker and the John Doe. It is not pretty. Thanks for joining us, and join me for my radio show Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. Have a great week.